Alesi was a joy to watch in practice. Mansell in pole position alongside Senna. Second row, as you can see, Alesi behind Nigel Mansell. Then Riccardo Patrese is fourth. Berger is, of course, off the grid now. Schumacher starting from the third row by himself. Ivan Capelli well up in the second Ferrari, and Thierry Boutsen in the Ligier, although he was slow this morning. Martin Brundle is, as you can see, there next to Bertrand Gachot. Johnny Herbert is down in 13th position in the Lotus, unhappy with the setup. Incidentally, the two Dallara Ferrari cars are going much better this morning than they did in qualifying. And Michele Alboreto, who's starting 16th on the grid in the Footwork Mugen car, was 8th fastest this morning in the warm-up. Very experienced driver, of course, and very much on his home ground, ex-Ferrari driver here at Monza. And this is a comparatively short race by Grand Prix standards, 53 laps, that's 191 miles. But the average speed is going to be getting on for 150 miles an hour.
And there is frantic action down here in the McLaren pit because the spare car was actually set up for Senna. We've got 10, 12 mechanics scurrying around, changing pedal settings, changing steering wheel, the seats. There's a lot of action going on there before Gerhard Berger is going to be in the car, but he should still make it, I'm sure. Other news, of course, is that everybody here is on the standard B control tyre. There is nobody, Goodyear haven't in fact brought any different tyres, but the key issue here for the teams, because of the very high track temperature, it's 45 degrees on the tarmac down here, the teams have had to cure the tyres properly, and this means that they need to run them for 3 to 4 laps, hard on the circuit, and then let them cool down, and then go through that cycle again, and that toughens the tyres up. Finally, we've got Schumacher, who's in his spare car. He's chosen that just this morning, in fact, after the morning's warm-up, preferring the handling of that particular one.
Yes, and it really is a lot of work to change a cockpit to fit from Senna to Berger, well, from any driver a switch, because they are made, there is no spare space in a cockpit at all, and everything has to fit really exactly. So, as Jonathan said, pedals, seat, gear, linkage, all sorts of things have to move, and it's a lot of work. So McLaren will be pushed to have that car ready, but if anybody can do it, they will. And it also, with this additional heat, there is an outside chance that people may run into tyre trouble because of the high temperature and have to stop for tyres. There are no really planned scheduled pit stops, but teams will certainly be looking carefully at the lap times round about 1/3 distance and for the middle third of the race to see if lap times are tailing off. And when I say tailing off, that means, of course, one remembers that as the fuel load goes down, so the lap times should be getting progressively quicker. So if they're not following the curve of that graph because of the fuel load, well, it's a straight line graph, but it's a progressive one, then they must consider that the grip is tailing off, and they have to calculate whether it's better to spend 7-second stops, maybe. It's a fairly quick entrance and exit to the pits here, so it'll be about 20 seconds lost on the overall race time with a deceleration and acceleration. They have to take that into their calculation, see if they think a fresh set of tyres for the second or the latter part of the race is going to regain that 20 seconds and more.
Now, in the Belgian Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, Nigel Mansell started from pole position, which is where he is now. Behind him, in second on the grid, was Ayrton Senna, and he's there today. But Senna got a better start than Mansell in Belgium and took the lead. Now, Senna led last year in Italy, strongly pursued by, first of all, Mansell, then by Patrese, who took the lead only to retire 2 laps later. And Nigel reminded us all yesterday that the start for both himself and Ayrton Senna is not down to their skill, juggling with the clutch pedal, the accelerator, the gear lever, the steering wheel. It's down to the telemetry, the computer in the car, which controls the getaway, because both the McLaren, second on the grid, and the Williams Renault in pole position have got a traction control device which cuts back the power of the engine if the rear wheels start to spin. The object being, of course, to get a perfect start. And how perfect the start is depends on how well the computer has been set up, how good the software is. Well, we're soon going to see whether Williams have got it better than McLaren, because Nigel Mansell, I prophesy, will be charging from the start. But Jonathan Palmer's point was very valid indeed. Here you have to nurse your tyres to make sure that you go through the whole race on one set. There really isn't time to stop, although Ayrton Senna did so last year in desperation, a gamble that didn't pay off. There's 1 minute to go, and in the opening stages of the race, although they will be going extremely quickly, they will be conserving their tyres right from the start until they are properly settled down and can go away. And down in the pit lane, I think Jonathan Palmer has some news for us.
Yes, a very relieved Gerhard Berger now has climbed into the cockpit of his McLaren. They are just about to start the engine, so it looks like he's going to get there with just a minute to spare.
Yes, so Nigel Mansell sits on pole position, contemplating whether this will be the end of his last Grand Prix season, or not this race, but this and the 3 remaining races after it. And there's been an awful lot of scurrying to and fro this weekend, a lot of people looking like headless chickens as the green flag goes, and away they go on the warm-up lap. But now he can relax and concentrate on winning this race, and I'm sure he'll be very fired up to do that. Now, immediately on this Monza circuit, we get a very critical part of the race, and that is the first corner. They're coming down now. You see how narrow the track is there. It's quite wide at the start line, and they just as they go onto the brakes for that first corner, they go into a sort of funnel which narrows the circuit, and there's quite often a bit of bumping and boring, and it's very easy to get a front wing knocked off at that first corner, which of course really destroys your chance in the race if you've got to come in for a new nose, because that's a lot longer a change than a set of tyres. And now from the overhead camera up to the second chicane, and then accelerating down into the woods where we get the 2 famous Lesmo corners, and they are extremely quick. They're going up through the gearbox. That is out of Lesmo's now, and Nigel's taking them around pretty quickly on the warm-up lap. He'll slow it down after the second chicane. They're coming out to the back chicane, the Ascari chicane it's called, which is the 3rd gear corner. Pretty quick. 3rd gear, believe it or not, out of 6 is some 120 miles an hour plus, up into 4th, and now on the final straight to the Parabolica. They can pick up a toe on this straight. Let's get into the slipstream of the quicker car, and they can do it on the start-finish straight, and those are the main overtaking points. And also a little chance at the Ascari chicane now. Mansell leading them around, Ayrton Senna coming alongside. All important start for them, and then Jean Alesi and the Ferrari having their best qualifying result of the year, but maybe there's been a fair element of Ferrari at Monza and a few special tweaks, and in race trim they were running only half tanks this morning, so their time was probably a little bit flattering. It'll be interesting to see if Ferrari can maintain that position. If they're back to their real race trim, it's going to be a struggle for them. So Nigel Mansell leads them slowly up to the grid, and there is Gerhard Berger in the pit road. Remember, he didn't get out before with that spare car before the pit lane was closed, so he has to start from the pit lane when the cars have all gone past.
This is Jean Alesi's car that we're riding with at the present moment. In front of him is Red 5, Nigel Mansell. To the right front of him is Ayrton Senna, the world champion of 1991. So the 2 world champions, Nigel Mansell of 1992, Ayrton Senna of 1991, head Jean Alesi's Ferrari. We can expect to see a tremendous start from all 3 of them, and of course from Riccardo Patrese on his home ground, who led here last year, has yet to win a race for Williams this year. And behind them is the sole Benetton in the 3rd row of Michael Schumacher, followed by Ivan Capelli's Ferrari. It is almost go. It is go. And Alesi goes straight past Ayrton Senna as they accelerate to the Rettifilio, and the Italian crowd roars with approval. Mansell leads in the Rettifilio. Senna comes through into second place, locks up, displaces Jean Alesi. Riccardo Patrese is in fourth position. Ivan Capelli is in fifth place. Thierry Boutsen is in seventh position ahead of Michael Schumacher, who is eighth. And in ninth place is Mika Häkkinen in the Lotus. So it is out of the Rettifilio now, up round the Grande Curva, up to the Rogia, the second chicane. Mansell leads, Senna second, Alesi third, Patrese fourth. Now they go into the Lesmo 1 and 2 bends at 130 miles an hour. Everybody's got away well. That's the first Lesmo. Now into the second, then into the Seraglio, the downhill sweeping left section, which leads to the Vialoni and the Ascari curves. A lot of people went off there in practice, but Mansell is starting as he means to go on as he approaches the Ascari curve on lap 1 in this 53-lap race. He's pulling away from Ayrton Senna already, who's pulling away from John Alesi third, Riccardo Patrese fourth, Capelli is fifth, sixth is Boutsen, seventh is Häkkinen, eighth is Schumacher. Martin Brundle is down in 10th position, and they're down to the Parabolica and round it now. This is a 125 mile an hour corner, accelerating through to come and complete lap 1 with Patrese challenging.
Yes, it's amazing. I thought I saw a glimpse of Berger, who'd made quite a lot of progress on the first lap. Mansell over the line in a good big lead and a storming first lap from Nigel Mansell. And after all the mental agony he suffered this weekend, it must be a relief to get in the racing car, and he's showing it, because certainly you really want to drive there. Senna sliding through the left-right of the Rettifilio, now in the Curva Grande. And into the, we've got a pit call already.
And it is Michael Schumacher. I noticed he came in at the end of that first lap. And so now Mansell consolidating his position. He will, as usual, endeavour to build up a cushion between himself and Ayrton Senna, with Riccardo Patrese up into third place, Alesi down to fourth. In fifth position, it's his teammate Capelli. So the Ferraris are higher in the second lap here in Italy than they have been all season. They went with the race engine as opposed to the qualifying engine they used yesterday. Thierry Boutsen, then Häkkinen, then Martin Brundle, with Schumacher having gone into the pits as down to the Parabolica for the second time, with Mansell now looking even this early in the race for reliability. And here's a replay.
Yes, and this is overhead of the start. You see Senna going inside Alesi. Alesi moved across in front of Senna to try and take the line, but Senna was already out accelerating him after a poor start. And Mansell, and yes, and there was the bumping and boring that got Schumacher. News from Jonathan Palmer.
Yes, and as you expected, that was indeed a nose cone replacement. Schumacher taking place in mere seconds on that Benetton car.
So now on the third lap, and Mansell has extended his lead to over 2 seconds. In the background, you see the V12 McLaren Honda of Ayrton Senna. And Riccardo Patrese in the second Williams is trying now to close up on the McLaren with the 2 Ferraris behind him. Thierry Boutsen in the points, but a long, long way to go. It's a 53-lap race, and this is only lap 3. Out of the race goes Aguri Suzuki. That is the first retirement.
It's interesting that, it was said before the start that it's so easy to bang noses here and to bang the front wing. And interesting to me that it's the relatively inexperienced Michael Schumacher who suffered that fate. It really has to be watched for. And at a replay, I don't quite know why as yet. And that would be Suzuki in trouble. Oh, crikey, that looks as if something broke on the car.
Well, I noticed Monsieur Griard was in the background. I'm not going to blame him for it. I don't know whether Suzuki would. He walks away now. 3 laps completed. Mansell's lead goes up to 2.7 seconds with the fastest lap of the race thus far. 1 minute 28.031. 2 seconds slower than the lap record, but of course they still have a full fuel load. Patrese is the same distance behind Mansell. behind Senna as Senna is behind Mansell. Here are the first three, and already there's a 5-second gap between the first and third men. Alesi is fourth, Capelli is fifth, Boutsen is sixth, Häkkinen is seventh, Brundle is eighth, Herbert is ninth, Comas is 10th, Leto is 11th, and Gachot is 12th.
Yes, and right now up front, I should think both Mansell and Senna will be looking after their tyres at this stage of the race. We heard from Jonathan Palmer before the race started just how the tyres need to be cured in, and while the fuel load is heavy, they're obviously not challenging each other. I'm sure Mansell is trying not to slide the car too much. Same for Senna, because this is where experience counts, and these drivers know that for the next 10 laps or so, it's important to look after the tyres if they want to get through the race with a pit stop and to be able to really charge in the latter part of the race. The potential stress on the tyres goes down enormously as the fuel load goes down, because not only is it fuel load, but also there's less rubber on the tyre as it wears, and that means that there is less heat build up. The heavier car and the more rubber gives you the much bigger heat build up. Mansell through the Rettifilo chicane, accelerating out into fourth gear, going up to some 200 miles an hour out of the Curva Grande before he brakes.
Another fastest lap for Mansell, 147.4 compared with 150.7, the lap record. He's now 3.8 seconds ahead. And of course, Mansell has got a point to prove as far as he's concerned. One, to win his 9th Grand Prix of the season and create a record, thereby beating his own 8 wins in one season, this season, and Ayrton Senna's before. But also, Nigel Mansell will be wishing to underline the fact that he is a very worthy world champion, having announced his retirement to everybody this morning. And he's now on lap 5 out of 53, coming up already to 1/10th distance in the shortest Grand Prix of the year in terms of time. And Riccardo Patrese in the second Williams is definitely gaining on Ayrton Senna. The gap, which was 2.6 seconds, has come down to 1.8, and he is lapping faster, obviously, than the McLaren. Alesi is still fourth. Capelli, his teammate in the second Ferrari, is fifth. Thierry Boutsen is still sixth. Häkkinen is right behind the Ligier in 7th position as Nigel Mansell goes through into his sixth lap, now 4.5 seconds ahead of Senna. So Senna has got to pray, from his point of view, that the Williams proves to be unreliable, because there is no doubt about the fact that the Williams Renault, the Williams chassis with its active suspension, that's Olivier Briard with a puncture in the right front wheel. He's very sense he's coming out of the Ascari curves now, coming down towards the Parabolica, coming into the Williams pit, who will know what the problem is, A, from the radio, B, from watching it on television, and to the Tyrrell pit, and they will have already, of course, a right front wheel and tyre ready. Nigel Mansell, there he is on lap 6, and Gerhard Berger has worked his way up from 26th when he started from the pit lane on lap 1, having changed to the spare car, to 16th. He's going round now 2 seconds a lap slower than the leaders, but of course he's having to carve his way through the traffic. And look in the background, you can see Riccardo Patrese inexorably closing up, and here's a replay of Okio Katayama, the LaRousse driver, and in the background you see Monsieur Olivier Briard again, and it looks as though that was the problem, very much so.
Yes, I'm not sure that he didn't already have the puncture, which caused him to fail to turn into that corner. It looked a bit like it to me, as Mansell extends his lead now 5 seconds, taking it quite easy. And although the McLaren team do seem to have closed the gap a little bit on Williams, it's still a long, long way to go. In Grand Prix racing terms, the gap is a yawning one. And Senna is beginning to come under attack from Riccardo Patrese. In third place, so Williams looking to go into what's now their familiar 1-2. And there's Johnny Herbert going through in 8th place, challenging Martin Brundle. So British drivers well up, with Mansell leading the way as usual.
Well, the mechanics in the Tyrrell pit are very busy indeed at the moment, not doing anything to the car, but sweeping away about 100 weight of gravel that they took out of that Tyrrell of Guyard. It needed a nose cone change, a new set of tyres all round to remedy that major off that he had.
And I didn't accuse Guyard of causing the problem directly, but it seemed to me to be rather a coincidence that Akio Katayama went off at the same time as Guyard had a puncture, particularly as Guyard was right behind the Larousse at the time it happened. So Mansell now 7 laps completed, and Ayrton Senna's problem is not Mansell so much as Patrese, because it's 1.2 seconds between Senna in second place and Patrese in third position now, with the Italian on his home ground inching up on the McLaren Honda in front of him. And Honda, for those of you who don't already know, have here at Monza officially announced their retirement from Grand Prix racing at the end of this season, having won 6 Constructors' Championships and powered 5 World Champions in the 10 years they have been in racing. And there is Alesi, who is 4th, Capelli, who is 5th, behind him Martin Brundle is 6th.
And certainly that's the best showing from Ferrari for some time, and it's good that it's happening here at Monza. It's good to see Ferrari. And there's Gerhard Berger slicing up through the field. He was up in 14th place the last time they came over the start-finish line. He's picked up yet another place. I think that was Michele Alboreto that he was passing. And so Berger is coming through the field pretty quickly, using the power of the Honda engine to make it past the back markers. So Gerhard Berger now up to 13th place, and with Morbidelli in his sights. He's got a long way to go to catch the leaders. The problem coming through the field, it inevitably takes time to get through, and by the time you get through the midfield runners, usually the leaders are out of reach. Comas and Ligier leading that group.
And in case you missed it, I said that Brundle was in 6th position. The point is, of course, that he has now passed Thierry Boutsen. Brundle in the Benetton, who has lost his place in the team to Riccardo Patrese next season. And Patrese now is less than a second behind Ayrton Senna, as Thierry Boutsen, there he is, pursued by the Dallara, and Gerhard Berger goes through. He's in 13th position. He's got Morbidelli in front of him, as James said, then Gachot, Leto and Comas, and down comes the lap speed again, 1:27.8, the fastest lap of the race so far, to Nigel Mansell. That's still 1.8 seconds outside the lap record held by Ayrton Senna, put up last year.
And you could see there that Nigel Mansell was keeping it pretty smooth. He's not pushing, and he's still going away at about a second a lap. Patrese is pushing hard as we switch back to Comas's group, and he leads Leto, Gachot, and you see Berger there in the background behind Morbidelli. But Mansell's just set another new fastest lap, but he's not pushing it. As I say, pulling away at some second a lap now, over 7 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. And this is where the close action is.
And Mika Häkkinen has gone spare. He was in 7th position on the 4th lap. This is lap 9. He's missing. And in 7th position now, it's Thierry Boutsen ahead of Johnny Herbert, with Comas in 9th position and Leto in 10th position. And you're looking now at Berger closing up on Gianni Morbidelli. He'll get past, there's no doubt about that, the Minardi. Then he's got the Larousse Lamborghini of Gachot in 11th place. JJ Leto in the Dallara Ferrari in 10th position. Gerhard Berger slicing his way through the field, but going well too is JJ Leto. That's him 10th. There's Gachot. There's Morbidelli. That is Berger in 13th position. And Mansell is now 7.3 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell on lap 10, just under 1/5 distance already. Watch Gerhard Berger. The producer's watching him, and he's good value. And that's Suzuki, Aguri Suzuki, the Japanese driver of the Footwork Mugen, walking in.
And a word with Bob Duns, chief mechanic at Lotus, proves that Lotus don't know where Häkkinen is either, I'm afraid, apart from the fact that he's stopped. And that just goes to show the difference between these relatively less affluent teams. No radio link there, I'm afraid, which works well enough to let the team know where the drivers stop.
Comas, we've just seen go through the picture. Leto, Gasho, Berger ducking and diving behind Morbidelli. He's not getting past the Minardi, which surprises me. He struck a temporary roadblock, and he's now trying to close up on Johnny Herbert, who is ahead of Comas in 9th position.
And that's good news. Herbert's been trying to get Comas for some time, but Berger's problem with the Minardi was that they were in a queue, but I think he's got in this time, and Berger nips inside. Yes, he did, but he needed Morbidelli to fall back from the group a bit, because as he ducked out of the toe each time, Morbidelli was getting sucked along by the cars in front, because he can hold his line and stay behind the cars ahead, thereby staying in their hold in the air, and that is the problem that he's got when he's in a queue. It becomes more difficult for the cars ahead. Now, his next victim will be Bertrand Gachot, just seeing that again, and he got a good run out of the Parabolica. He's nice and late on the brakes, and then if you get alongside at a corner like this, you can just block the other car out, because they've got nowhere to turn in. And Berger is through. Nigel Mansell goes through another new fastest lap, but only shaving hundredths of a second off the old one. 9 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna with 11 laps completed. And Riccardo Patrese still pressing Senna for second place. And there's Mansell, the leader. Let's just have a look and see if we can see the fact that he's still not throwing the car about. No need to. He can afford. He's set up a nice big lead. And there's the group behind with Comas leading that group. There's Berger.
Yes, Gerhard Berger in 11th position now into the Rettifilo, that chicane that was put in to slow down the entry to the Grande Curve some time ago. And here's a replay of, it looks like Michael Schumacher coming up through the field. He's in 15th place, and it's Schumacher passing Martini, Pierluigi Martini, and taking that 15th place. So the Belgian Grand Prix winner up to 15th.
Or is it Brundle passing Capelli? It was hard to see, because, and there is Brundle. This is a replay, and this must be Martin Brundle passing Capelli. So Brundle moves up into 4th place, in fact. We couldn't see from the helicopter, but Brundle had been pressing him for some laps. And what's more, his next target will be that car you see in the foreground, which is Jean Alesi, whose Ferrari is struggling. As we thought in the race, Ferrari did what they could for qualifying. They also, for the purpose of being in Italy, only gave their car half tanks this morning in the warm-up. That was known. And in fact, Alesi's in trouble. Alesi is pulling off the circuit, and so Martin Brundle moves up into 4th place. Completely off the circuit, but he slowed right down.
Yes, this it looks like the end of Jean Alesi's race. Good news for Martin Brundle, up into 4th position in the Benetton. Martin Brundle, who has done so well this season with the Benetton team. He's in 6th position in the World Championship now, having had a string of points finishes after a bad start. And in the background now, you see Jean Alesi, and you can see that he's going visibly slower. But for those of you who are still in shock, having heard about Nigel Mansell's retirement, as Alesi pulls off and retires from his own Italian Grand Prix, and now we expect to see half of Italy get up and go home. Mansell is leading Senna by 10.1 seconds. Senna has still got Riccardo Patrese tight up behind him, half a second behind. Up into 4th place goes Martin Brundle, and here is Patrese challenging Ayrton Senna for 2nd place as they go through into the 14th lap, and he's going through. Is he? Yes! Senna tries to hold him off but fails. Patrese locks up, holds the line, cuts the apex, goes over the concrete ribbing of the curving, but holds that 2nd place, and now he will pull away, and Williams are 1st and 2nd.
And that was good driving by Patrese. He used his experience then, because he'd basically overshot the corner. He'd braked too late, but what he did cleverly was put himself in Senna's way, and Senna would and wanted to be able to shoot back into the lead. he had the right line and he had the speed, but he had nowhere to go. And that looks like Capelli. And Capelli is at the other Ferrari out. And Ivan Capelli also, so both Ferraris have gone, and very well, and we've got a replay now. And that looks as if he lost it on the brakes there. He got the back, he maybe locked up the rear brakes a bit, got it bouncing, and then as he turned into the corner, it swapped ends on him. And that looked very much like a mistake for Capelli. It could have been some problem with the car, but it did look like an error. So all change at the front. Now we have Brundle in fourth place. The first three stay the same, and the first four are back. But Boutsen back ahead of Johnny Herbert has been. They've swapped places, and as the leaders come round, of course, Patrese up now ahead of Senna. We saw that change.
Oh, sad and dispirited, Jean Alesi nodding to the crowd. He walks in. It's been a terrible day for Ferrari. They had worked so hard on the F92AT, that the T stands for Transversale, that's the transverse gearbox that they've got on the car. And they had hoped for great things in Italy, but it was not to be. Both cars out by lap 15. Jean Alesi immediately followed by Ivan Capelli. And as you watch Riccardo Patrese with Ayrton Senna in third place trying to hold on, here is a replay of the Italian passing the Brazilian.
Now you see now, Patrese comes back to protect the inside line, as was the moment he's got clear air. And then you'll see him lock his brake a little bit, and he's going a bit too quickly, so he goes wide on that first bit. But now he plonks himself in Senna's way, and he keeps Senna covered, and there's nowhere that he can go. And that was good defensive, experienced driving by Riccardo Patrese. And now we see them again, and Patrese, as one would expect, is pulled away, and that looks like Pierluigi Martini. Looks like he's recovering from a spin and getting away again. And in the meantime, I wonder if Johnny Herbert has got a problem, because he got past Thierry Boutsen and then he's dropped back again. And he does seem to, he's dropped back a bit. And one hopes not, because he's had a wretched season. It's promised so much, the Lotus has gone well, but things, the luck just doesn't seem to have been running for Herbert this year. And that looks like Bertrand Gachot walking in.
It is, so Gachot is out, Suzuki is out, Häkkinen seems to be out, Alesi is out, Capelli is out. Williams have already finished first and second in 6 of the 13 Grand Prix that have been held so far this year. It looks as though they're on their way to their 7th, as into the pits comes Gerhard Berger. Now, I told you earlier on that you can't afford to stop for tyres in the Italian Grand Prix. For some reason, Berger has done so. Gerhard Berger, 6.9 seconds.
Yes, and that, I'm sure, Murray, will be a legacy of him having to fight his way through the traffic early in the race, and therefore not being able to afford to look after his tyres. And in the draft of the other cars, of course, he's sliding about more. That would put more strain on it. And it may be that they didn't get a chance to switch the specially and very carefully cured tyres from his race car onto the spare. But one would have hoped they would have done that, certainly. But certainly the sliding it about in the traffic in the draft would have hurt his chances. And now things are starting to settle down. Patrese has got enough clear air to have no real immediate threat from Ayrton Senna. But Senna is doggedly clinging on. He's certainly not giving up. And Martin Brundle in fourth place, some 15 seconds behind Senna. And there you see the gap to Mansell. Mansell very comfortable in his lead of 11 seconds. I'm sure has quite a lot in hand. And in the meantime, Herbert is still holding Thierry Boutsen, so at least it looks as if he hasn't got a serious problem.
Well, McLaren are not too sure what the problem was, but they put a new set of tyres on Gerhard. That seems to be what he wanted. He gave them just about enough notice, which probably means about 13 seconds.
Well, we are on lap 17 now, and incidentally, Williams have won 6 out of 12 Grand Prix. This is the 13th. And I'm going to be interestedly watching the gap between race leader Nigel Mansell and his teammate Riccardo Patrese, because just as Nigel Mansell wants it to be his 9th and a record win of the season, Riccardo Patrese, leaving Williams at the end of this season and going to Benetton next year, will be more than anxious at least once to beat Nigel Mansell, the world champion, and to take a victory with him when he joins his new team next year. There are no race orders, of course, and Patrese led this race last year, and if there's one race he wants to win more than any other, it's the Italian Grand Prix at the most charismatic location of all, Monza. So, lap 18, Mansell leading by a decreasing margin because the gap now is under 10 seconds and it was over 12 between himself and Patrese. Senna is an increasing distance behind the Williams of Patrese in 3rd position. Martin Brundle is in 4th position. Thierry Boutsen is in 5th place. Johnny Herbert is in 6th position. And then it's Eric Comas, Leto and Schumacher, who's coming up well through the field. Indeed, Michael Schumacher, who stopped and came in for a new nose cone, is up to 9th position, and he's right behind JJ Leto. And Schumacher is lapping at the present minute about half a second slower than race leader Nigel Mansell, who is watching his pace very carefully, coming through now to complete his 17th lap.
And on the subject, Murray, of Riccardo Patrese moving to the Benetton team, it has rather puzzled me that move. And we saw somebody off that looked like the March car, parked and beached, I think, on the curb. And that's Carl Vendinger's car, we think. But not a very safe place to park it. The marshals will have to move fast. And Schumacher going through. Now, Schumacher has been quietly charging through the field after his pit stop and has taken over the role that Gerhard Berger was playing. And I think that was Comas that he was following. So he is up there now. There's the operation to try and remove that car. And from that angle, we can't tell you definitely who it is, other than the fact that it is a march. But in the meantime, the marshals are on it. They've got to get the tow rope attached and drag it backwards through that sandpit, which will fill it full of gravel. And that is an extremely dangerous spot, and particularly for the marshals to work. And really, they're taking an awfully long time, and this is not good workmanship there. Maybe they not familiar with how to hook it up, but they ought to just hook it to anything, the roll-over bar possibly.
Schumacher flying through the field. He's in 7th position now. He has passed, and you see behind him Eric Comas in the Ligier and JJ Leto in the Dallara, followed by Michele Alboreto, who is in 10th position. So Schumacher is driving in Italy, and that's Johnny Herbert slowing down and about to lose his place. He does so. Johnny Herbert loses his position, and Michael Schumacher goes through in the Benetton back into the points. He's in 6th position, having come in and had a new nose cone fitted. And of course they will have had to get the wing angles on that car set up beforehand. It's a tribute to the Benetton team for their preparation, and it's a tribute to Michael Schumacher for the way he's driving it. So coming towards us, Schumacher 7th, Comas is in 8th position. Behind Comas in 9th position is JJ Leto. Behind him is Alboreto. Then it's Andrea De Cesaris and Gerhard Berger in 12th place, having of course been in for that 6.91 second tyre stop as the unfortunate Johnny Herbert climbs out of his Lotus to retire for the 5th time this year. Johnny Herbert's had all the bad luck in the Lotus team. Mika Häkkinen has had a lot of good luck because Häkkinen is in 8th position, having finished in the points 5 times this season. And you're looking now at Riccardo Patrese in front of Nigel Mansell. And I don't know what happened, we haven't seen it, but Patrese has taken the lead on the 20th lap from Mansell, with Senna in 3rd position.
It looked to me as if Mansell's going in good health, so maybe he's had a spin. And we will just hope to see if we get an action replay. And Mansell didn't go for the pits, so they got the tyres ready, but that would be in case he's flat spotted. But Mansell looks to me, the body language of the car says, I'm really charging. and also that of Patrese, because Patrese was moving around on the straight then to try and shake Mansell out of his slipstream, and that would suggest that there's been maybe a spin by Mansell.
Well, Mansell's lap was 1 minute 41.5 and Patrese's was 1:29.2. Now, I'm guessing, but that says to me that Mansell spun. We haven't seen anything at all, but from the way the car is going, there's nothing wrong with it. And my goodness, there's nothing wrong with the way Mansell's driving it on lap 21 out of 53 in second place.
Absolutely, and the good news is we've now got a race on our hands. For a while anyway, and I don't think you'll find Mansell coming from pits. And there is Senna in the background. So Mansell clearly, Murray, as you observed from the lap time, has made a mistake. He's had a spin or a little off. And and here maybe we'll see what happens. No, because there were the two Williamses together in that situation. And that's Patrese going past him. So Mansell, I think, maybe was slow out of the chicane. Maybe he went off at that chicane, but it looks as if we're all going to have to guess, because I'm sure if the cameramen had that on a camera that from which they were recording, they'd been able to show us it by now. So Patrese leads Nigel Mansell just by 0.6 of a second. Senna just another 2.5 seconds back. So 3 seconds and a bit covering the first three cars. Senna dropped back a little bit.
Lap 22 out of 53, and as you say, James, we have got a race on our hands. Both these men driving Williams Renault, equally determined to win the Italian Grand Prix. Riccardo Patrese has yet to finish higher than second place this year. He's done that often enough. He did it in South Africa and Mexico. He did it in Brazil. He did it in France. He did it in Britain. So he's now in the lead ahead of the man who he most fears.
Yes, well, Nigel Mansell said this morning in his press conference that he'd had no sleep all weekend, so to be a bit cheeky, maybe that was the first bit of sleep he's had all weekend in order to make that mistake with a comfortable lead, but that's a rather cynical view, and I don't mean it nastily, because above all, he's given us a race, and this is going to be good stuff, and he's dropped back a little bit on that lap, and it may be, of course, when you spin these cars or you lock your brakes up, there's a tendency to flat spot the tyres. And if Mansell has handicapped himself with flat spotted tyres, it might be that he could still win this race if he went for the pits and had a really fast tyre change and came out on fresh rubber, because he would be quicker depending on how many cars he had to pass. In the meantime, Schumacher is really flying and he's on schedule. He's now chasing teammate Martin Brundle.
Well, I'm looking at a rather sad scene down here in the pit lane as the very forlorn, bitterly disappointed Ferrari team progressively pack up all of their equipment. Report from Harvey Postlethwaite says that Alesi's problem was lack of fuel pressure, and I think we can judge Capelli's situation for ourselves.
And 3.3 seconds separate the first and third. And on the previous lap, Ayrton Senna, they're coming up now, Patrese and Mansell, first and second, to catch, pass and lap there, the Dallara, number 22, of Pierluigi Martini, who is in 12th position. And if Martini, as usual, doesn't move out of the way quickly, this could give Nigel Mansell his opportunity to challenge. And there is Grillard, who is pushing Wendlinger, so it must have been Naspetti who went off in the march. Indeed it was. And now Pierluigi Martini in 12th position exits the Parabolica. This should give certainly Patrese the opportunity to get through, but I don't think that Mansell will. So this will give Riccardo Patrese an advantage. He's up to the Rettifilo now. He's going to nip past Martini on the inside, but Martini will take up the racing line and block Nigel Mansell. He has done so. They're on lap 24. Patrese leads, Mansell second. Senna is in third position. Now Mansell comes out from the slipstream of Martini. No, he doesn't. Dallara moves across and Mansell will be furious at that because he's losing hundredths of a second all the time.
Yes, and I think Mansell really missed an opportunity there by not getting close enough to Patrese. There will be others, of course, but if he has flat spotted his tyres, maybe he is struggling to get really close to him. But he needs to use the traffic. Another car ahead of them. Patrese see again maybe what happened. And it may just be that when Patrese passed Mansell, Mansell may have just had a gearbox problem or something like that, so it's struggling to get gears. And of course, if he has got a bit of a gearbox problem, maybe one gear missing, one gear broken, something like that, then that would explain why. Now, look, we look at it again. This is out of the second chicane. And Patrese just simply goes past him on the straight.
Now, the leaders are coming up to catch and lap Grilliard. Well, there you saw Patrese going through. I just can't explain it. I can only guess that Mansell somehow missed a gear, or that the computer didn't work to change him properly. But whatever, he's now up with Patrese, who is up with Grilliard in 16th position in the Tyrrell Ilmore. Is the notorious Grilliard going to get in the way? I am maligning him, but so many times in the past he's done it. They're into the Rozier now, on the way to the two Lesmos. Patrese is going to go through in a moment, hopefully, but all the time Mansell is edging up on the gearbox of the Williams Renault ahead. So, Patrese catching Grilliard, and Grilliard is behind Wendlinger, who is in 15th position, and Mansell now, as they come up to the Ascari curves. Patrese goes through and takes Grilliard, who moves out. He's got to stay out and let Mansell through. He has done it. Now he will be in the way of Ayrton Senna, who is in 3rd position, and that is Carl Wendlinger in the March Ilmore in 15th place, ahead of Riccardo Patrese as they come down to the Parabolica at some 185 miles an hour. They back off, go round in 4th gear, 125 miles an hour, accelerating out to come through and complete lap 24.
Patrese gets the toe past Wendlinger. Mansell sticks in his slipstream. He'll want to get past him before they get into the chicane, which looks unlikely now. And once again, Mansell's the wrong side of the back marker for the moment. In the meantime, behind, Martin Brundle is handling the threat of Schumacher quite comfortably. Of course, Schumacher still has Boutsen between him and Brundle, but Brundle is lapping as quickly as Michael Schumacher, and with some 25 seconds advantage on him. There seems to be no problem for Brundle in 4th place, unless he has some sort of mechanical driver. But this is the big battle, the lead. Patrese, no doubt, very fired up indeed at this stage of the race. Senna behind in the background, still there lurking to pick up the pieces. Not fully competitive. And Mansell seems unable to pull in that last half a second of gap, which is quite normal with the problem with the hole in the air that we know so well. These cars depend on still air, or rather not the hole made the turbulence. Now is Schumacher attacking Boutsen, and Schumacher now going for 5th place, which Thierry Boutsen currently holds.
And Schumacher is lapping significantly quicker than Patrese and Mansell at the present moment. He's just gone round in 1 minute 27.9, whereas both of them are lapping a second slower. Thierry Boutsen in the points for the first time this season. He's in 5th position in the Ligier Renault. There is Michael Schumacher. This, and I use the word advisedly, quite sensational young German who's already won once, been 2nd twice and 3rd 3 times in this his first full season of Grand Prix racing, and is lying in 3rd position in the championship, just 1 point behind Riccardo Patrese. We're riding with him now. It's the Ligier Renault of Thierry Boutsen ahead of him. They exit the Parabolica, they change up into 6th gear, 160 miles an hour, building up to 200 miles an hour as they go over the line there. He's going to attack Boutsen and try to take 5th position, and he's doing it. Michael Schumacher goes up into 5th position with a superlative passing manoeuvre. Hart takes Thierry Boutsen, who drops back, of course, because he was on the wrong line. And now Schumacher in 5th position has got a substantial 6-second gap between himself and Martin Brundle.
Yes, we've got a good view from the onboard camera of the tremendous straight line speed of the Benetton, but they achieved that by running very little wing. And he was quite slow out of the Parabolica, had quite a lot of ground to make up on the straight, but with the help of the slipstream, he made it, and there he goes. And so through, Schumacher goes into 5th place, and now he's got Martin Brundle ahead of him, but it's quite a long way away. And Brundle has been lapping very steadily and capably in 4th place, but also, albeit rather a lonely 4th place now.
Nigel Mansell quickest. He's made the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 26.8, but that's only 1/10 of a second quicker than Riccardo Patrese. And after the race, when Nigel Mansell talks to us, he's going to say, I had this problem, and we're going to say, oh yes, of course, but I don't know what it is at the moment.
Yes, and in fact the tempo is hotting up at the front, because Patrese, they both set new fastest laps as they went over the line. New fastest lap for Patrese, and then about 0.6 of a second later Mansell crossed the line with an even faster one. And Mansell now getting in the best position we've seen him so far to make the attack. As they go down to the Parabolica, what Mansell needs is a good run. Patrese weaving around, but Mansell needs to get set up with a really quick exit out of the Parabolica to get the toe down to the chicane. And I don't think he's going to be close enough this time. Big problem getting grip on the corner following his teammate. But Mansell, having lost 13 seconds on the lap that Patrese came past, makes me think that he did go off at that chicane, or it would seem so, because it seems too much of a coincidence to have a problem that would take 13 seconds to be there and then suddenly go away, because quite clearly his car is running, if not perfectly, very close to it at the moment. So you would think that he went off and he was just accelerating away when Patrese came by and jumped him. So, but Mansell now is beginning to get ready for the attack.
Now, there you can see there's the Wendlinger going through. Behind him, Grillard's Tyrrell Ilmore exploding, and out pours the smoke. And Jonathan Palmer's got Johnny Herbert in the pit lane.
Johnny, it's always nice to speak to you, but I'm a bit sorry to be speaking to you once again when you're dropping out of a good position. Can you tell us what happened? We saw that you were 6th on the monitor, and then it all went blank.
Yeah, it was about 2 laps before I stopped. I felt it tightening up very, very slightly, but I wasn't really too sure. But then suddenly it just started really tightening up. And then it was almost, I don't know, I wasn't pulling the rev, so then I just cut it off.
When it was going well, how's your V8 power output compared to those multi-cylinder V12s?
Well, on this circuit, I think we run out of breath a little bit, but, you know, we do expect that a little bit. But overall, it's still a very good engine, and just a shame we didn't keep going.
Indeed. Johnny, thanks for your time.
Lap 29 out of 53. Ayrton Senna is dropping back. Nigel Mansell is increasing the challenge. And this is the story of the race at the present moment.
Yes, and it's going to be no easy matter for Mansell to get past, because he's in that no-go zone, or he comes into it. As soon as he gets close enough to really threaten, then in the corners he loses grip. He picks up the toe effect on the straight by going faster when he's in the hole in the air, but come the corners he struggles. And there they go. There's a slower car whose back view I can't recognise at the moment. And the battle is really on, but Mansell closer than ever. But I'm sure he made some sort of error, but we hope not. But whatever has happened, we've got a tremendous race. It's going to be no easy matter for Mansell to get past. Senna just now 3.5 seconds behind as the things have hotted up, but he's still there lurking. Anything that goes wrong and he's going to pounce.
And Mansell is about to pounce. I think he's closer than he's been to Patrese for a very long time indeed. He will get the benefit of the slipstream as they come up to the Parabolica. He should be able to pull out and pass him as they come back to the Rettifilio and retake the lead as they go through. Now, Patrese knows that Mansell's there just as well as you do, and somehow or other he has found the extra speed to stay ahead and keep the line.
Well, I was amazed then, because Mansell was in perfect position. He seemed to absolutely have it set up. He came whizzing up in the toe, and then he just effectively stopped. And Patrese, if anything, in the last bit of the straight, seemed to pull out a length or two. So that was quite extraordinary to me. Mansell seemed to absolutely have the pass set up.
Now, here's a bit of hypothesis, James. We know that Renault have moved recently to the RS4 engine as opposed to the very successful RS3B. It seemed to me that the RS4 in its initial stages was not as good as the previous model. I'm hypothesizing that Nigel Mansell in second place and clearly not being able to do anything significant about Patrese has got a problem with that new Renault engine.
Yes, and we have news from Jonathan Palmer in the pits.
Well, it's not just you that's hypothesising, Murray, it's down in the Williams pit too, because Nigel has made no radio transmission whatsoever, so they're quite in the dark too.
It may well be, of course, that Nigel in his present state of mind is not too anxious to talk to anybody in the Williams pit. He's not on the best of terms with the management now, and he will be bitterly disappointed that he's not able to continue to dominate this race as he did in the early stages before he had whatever problem he's got. There you see Patrese leading, Mansell, well, you can see visually what the gap is. Ayrton Senna dropping back all the time. Martin Brundle nearly half a minute behind the Brazilian, ahead of his teammate Michael Schumacher in the second Benetton, driving as brilliantly here as he did in Belgium. Thierry Boutsen still in the 0.6 position. His teammate Eric Comas in the second Ligier is 7th. JJ Leto is 8th, well up in the Dallara Ferrari. In 9th position it's Michele Alboreto, 10th is Andrea De Cesaris, in 11th place is Gerhard Berger, and that is Wendling and the pits, and he was in 12th position and will therefore have lost it. In fact, the leaders have lapped everybody now up to the 11th place man and Andrea De Cesaris, who is 10th, and here they are. Patrese. Mansell closes up on the twisty bits, loses his advantage. Now, you can see Gerhard Berger in the McLaren there. You just saw him go out of picture, and he is in 11th position, and he's about to be caught and lapped by the two Williams. This is going to be something to see. And it's another indication of the fact that 1992 is the worst season that McLaren have had for a very long time, because Berger is chasing Michele Alboreto's footwork Mugen, and it's V10 engine as Patrese goes into the Rettifilo. Left, right, little short straight, left, right again. Mansell will be seeing the traffic ahead and sizing up the opportunity to get past his teammate.
There's an oil flag on the entry to the Rettifilo, although I couldn't see much evidence of that. That's quite a long way from the track. Mansell dropped back a bit after his first attempted pass when he rather amazed us by getting into such a good position with Patrese, but now he's come storming back and looks like he's lining himself up to have another go. But I still am mystified by that, and Mansell's in very good position now, coming down to the back chicane. It's through here. He needs a good run here, a good run down to the Parabolica. I don't think he'll want to make his pass into the Parabolica. Well, he's not close enough, in fact, but he needs to be close because there's lots of traffic ahead, and this, of course, will provide Mansell with an opportunity, but he does appear to have lost a bit of power on the straight.
I can't understand this because his fastest lap so far is Nigel Mansell, 1:26.8. His previous lap to this one was 1:26.9. So if he has lost power, as I was suggesting, it doesn't seem to affect him much. Now, Patrese, with 20 laps to go in this 53-lap race, comes up to Michele Alboreto. Mansell comes up to Patrese, but in front of Alboreto is Berger. So Nigel Mansell has got a golden opportunity now to drive tactically, which Riccardo Patrese will be fully aware of. So there is Leto. Behind Leto is De Cesaris. Behind De Cesaris is Berger, who doesn't seem to be able to do anything about the Tyrrell Ilmor, and Mansell goes through. Patrese has already done so and taken Michele Alboreto. The next target for today is Andrea De Cesaris in the Tyrrell Ilmor, and the experienced Italian is there, just behind Gerhard Berger. So De Cesaris. They're coming down now down into the dip, into the Ascari curves. That's another chicane that was put in to slow down the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. It's still the fastest race in the world, but that was in 1971 when Peter Gethin won in the BRM, and at that time the Rettifilo didn't exist, the Roger didn't exist, and the Ascari chicane didn't exist, and Riccardo Patrese has passed Andrea De Cesaris, so has Nigel Mansell, and again, as Patrese comes up behind the McLaren Honda of Gerhard Berger, Nigel Mansell sees the opportunity to attack. Berger is chasing the Dallara of JJ Leto. And Ayrton Senna is dropping back all the time. He has not yet passed Michele Alboreto. So Senna playing the only game he can play, reliability, and hoping that the two Williams in front of him will drive each other so hard that they will either break down or that one or both of them will go off. But they are both enormously experienced drivers. Riccardo Patrese, of course, the most experienced driver of them all. This is his 237th Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell is the most experienced British driver of all, his 178th Grand Prix. Now they come up to Gerhard Berger in 9th position.
And Mansell again in a good place to attack. And in the meantime, Martin Brundle is ensuring there's no threat from Michael Schumacher, and he's holding that gap. And he's some 23 seconds still ahead of Schumacher, and that's fine. But look at these Williamses, Berger. And Berger also busy with a passing manoeuvre, and that may well have given Mansell a chance because he's right on the tail of the other Williams, and he's got the toe from Berger, which Patrese has not.
Yes, Riccardo Patrese has passed Gerhard Berger, so no, Nigel Mansell ducking and diving and trying to get through, and once again the Englishman suffers from traffic. Riccardo Patrese was able to get past Gerhard Berger, whose McLaren Honda seems to be well down on performance here. And Mansell has got it all to do again. First of all, he's got to get past Berger, and meantime, Riccardo Patrese is coming up to lap JJ Leto in the Dallara. There he is. Leto has got ahead of him. Eric Comas in the Ligier Renault. Magnificent driving in traffic. That is Eric Comas. And I remind you that the Frenchman is in 7th position. So the leaders are coming up very soon to lap the last point-scoring man. And that is Thierry Boutsen in the Ligier ahead of Comas. So, coming towards us now, that is Gabriele Tarquini. There is Comas. Behind him is Leto. Here are the two Williams, Patrese and Mansell.
And I'm quite sure Gerhard Berger was really enjoying himself then, interfering with the race for the lead. I can just imagine him laughing away because he wasn't doing anything naughty. He was just getting on with his own race, but I bet he was having fun. And in the meantime, Senna was catching up, but Mansell gets the chop from the Dallara. And Senna got slightly closer to the two Williamses, but he can only play a watching brief, really, Ayrton Senna. I'm sure Berger will let him go. And, locking brakes there, but I'm sure that Patrese, with his little bit of extra speed, looks to be in control of things at the moment.
Well, seeing a McLaren being lapped is a pretty unusual situation. And the McLaren team are pretty mystified about the situation too. They don't really know why he stopped for tyres in the first place. The left front apparently was a bit grainy, which means that it had started to slide it.
And you saw there Nigel Mansell go up on the curb trying to pass Eric Comas. Once again, Riccardo Patrese was quicker through the traffic, and Nigel Mansell rode right up onto the curb, and he's lost time. Coming towards us now, they are on lap 37 in this 53-lap race. And of course, Ayrton Senna, who's been in a more casual way, if you like, driving through the traffic, has closed right up on Nigel Mansell. This is a wonderful scrap for the first three places. Patrese is 0.6 of a second ahead of Mansell, and Mansell is 0.4 of a second ahead of Senna, and that is Eric Comas getting his just desserts from Nigel Mansell's point of view and going off in the Ligier and out of the race.
Yes, and he was reversing then under his own power, but Senna sneaking, here you see it again, and Mansell going inside Comas. He thought Comas had stayed out of his way to let him through, and they're getting a bit of a schmozzle, and Mansell locks the brake, has to go right up on the curb to stay clear of Comas, but he survived. But Senna may have as he snuck through, it may have looked casual, but you can be sure it wasn't. He's been giving it everything to get through the traffic because he's been looking. That's why he's been trying to keep up, looking for just a moment like that when he can nip in and take a place. And he will continue to stay as close as he can, because he can see there could be there's going to be a fight between the Williams drivers if Mansell can get alongside. Patrese wants to win. Mansell, he wants to win for different reasons. He hasn't had one this year. He's moving at the end of the year. He's been dropped, so he's not happy. And Mansell is pretty unhappy with life in general at the moment. And a win, I'm sure he'll feel, will say, well, that's it to everybody. See what you're missing, and of course it will also be the record.
Well, Nigel Mansell was hoping to get that record 9th win in Belgium, but instead Schumacher did. And Mansell was then hoping to get it here. Here's a replay of that's Ayrton Senna in 3rd position. Behind him, JJ Leto. And there is, in the background, Eric Comas spinning out of the race, having been passed by Michele Alboreto, who's now up into 10th position. And the race order as they come through to complete they're now on lap 39. You can see the gap between Patrese leading, Mansell second, Senna in 3rd position. 4th is Martin Brundle, 27 seconds behind. Schumacher is 50 seconds behind his teammate. In 5th place, Thierry Boutsen is the only other one on the same lap as the leaders. JJ Leto is 7th, Berger is 8th, De Cesaris is 9th, and Alboreto is in 10th place. And Mansell again is pushing as hard as he can.
Yes, and a new fastest lap for Nigel Mansell. But I do think that whatever his problem was earlier, he's a little bit down on power now, especially maybe at the top end at high revs, and that is hurting him, because Mansell, of course, has proved to us again and again this season that he's a quicker driver than Riccardo Patrese, and I'm sure with equal power he would have been past him. We saw him get into the absolutely ideal position out of the Parabolica with a good run at him into the toe, and then just got stuck. There's Senna in the background. But whatever, if he has got that problem, it's giving us a good race, because we know he's a fighter, we know he's a tremendous overtaker, and he's going to give it everything he can. But Patrese, to his credit, is coming under a lot of pressure, and he's being pretty cool about it. He's really defending his lead quite well. He's keeping calm, which is just what it needs.
You can say anything about Grand Prix racing to Riccardo Patrese, and he can say been there, done that, because he's the most experienced of them all, and he's using every minute of that considerable experience of his now, watching his rear view mirrors, studying where Mansell closes up on him, studying where he falls back, making sure that he can get his line right to make it difficult for Mansell to get through. That is Ayrton Senna in 3rd position, who has lapped his teammate Gerhard Berger, who is in 7th position. Brundle is still 4th, and Schumacher is 5th with Boutsen 6th.
And another fastest lap for Mansell. Every time he drops back, he comes whizzing back to Patrese, setting fastest laps as he goes. So, as we can see, he's clearly quicker than Patrese when on his own, but the problem is getting past. And as I say, I do think there may be a top-end power problem at the engine, because it seems to go fine up through the gears, but when they get to full speed, and of course he hasn't got another gear to snick it to. He may be changing early, you see, as he goes up through the gearbox. Now, they're coming down back to the Parabolica. Not quite close enough this time. But better speed out. Mansell's got good speed out of it.
And he's only 1/10 of a second off the lap record, which was put up by Ayrton Senna last year. And I remind you that this year now the cars are using to have fuel which is no longer as special as it was a few races ago, as a result of an edict made by FISA, the governing body of the sport. And there are people who reckon that the cars are 40 or 50 horsepower down on what they were before the Hungarian Grand Prix. But the balance of power is still held by Renault with their V10 ahead of the V12 of Honda, who of course are retiring from Grand Prix racing at the end of this year. We're on lap 41 out of 53. Mansell about 2/10 or 3/10 of a second behind Patrese. Senna dropping back all the time now because the two Williams men are forcing each other to lap record breaking pace. I'm expecting it to be a new lap record. Well, maybe not now, because they're coming up to lap Mauricio Gugelmin in the Jordan Yamaha, whose engine is sadly down on power. That's Wendlinger coming towards us. And now Thierry Boutsen in 6th place as Patrese comes out and takes Gugelmin. And once again, Nigel Mansell has got somebody between him and Riccardo Patrese, which gives Ayrton Senna an opportunity to close up a little. Into the Parabolica again to come through and out of it and complete their 41st lap in this 53-lap race. So, Patrese. Mansell has got past Mauricio Gugelmin, the Brazilian, great personal friend of Ayrton Senna, and now the two leaders are coming up to lap 42, the 6th place man, Thierry Boutsen, and in the background, Gugelmin, I think it was. No, it wasn't, it was Berger. Gerhard Berger goes over the sand pit on the exit of the Rettifilio, and again, Ayrton Senna gets past somebody and Nigel Mansell does not. The somebody this time was Thierry Boutsen, who moves across, the experienced Belgian in the Ligier. There's a lot of debate about whether he's going to be there next year. I believe his teammate Eric Comas may well already have signed for the French team for 1993. But Mansell, having been held up by Boutsen, there wasn't much the Belgian could do about it, to be fair to him, has dropped back now as they come out of the Ascari curves down to the Parabolica again.
And Mansell's in trouble. Mansell was slow through Ascari curve. Appears to be a problem. And Boutsen has just gone away from him. So Mansell is in trouble. And Nigel Mansell, that looks like the end of the day's work for Nigel Mansell. So that record 9th win is eluding him. And pressure gone from Riccardo Patrese, and I think he's just coasting into the pits. At least he won't have a long walk. So Nigel Mansell seems to have a problem with top-end power, possibly.
Nigel Mansell waves his hands across the steering wheel to say to his mechanics, don't bother, chaps, it's all over. So he knows, and I suspect engine from the way he was going and the way he stopped. So now Ayrton Senna, who did so well last year and has already won at Monaco and Hungary here. It's been a very poor season for him, only 2 wins. But Senna is in with a shout now to win in Italy. He won here in 1990, he was 2nd last year, and you see the sad sight of the world champion of 1992, Nigel Mansell, having failed for the 2nd race in succession to get that 9th win that he wanted so much, retiring from the Italian Grand Prix and going back to the motorhome, and I suspect a pretty frosty atmosphere. Now you're in the garage now, he's out of the car, walks sadly away from it, and Senna is 5.5 seconds behind Patrese on lap 43, 10 to go, and he knows now that he's got 10 laps to catch the Italian. There he is, and take the lead.
Yes, and I don't think he'll fancy his chances of that, but he'll try and keep the pressure on Patrese, and I have to say that... and Jonathan Palmer's got Nigel Mansell.
Nigel, thanks very much for speaking to us so soon after retiring from the Monza Grand Prix. We saw you having some problems. Just what went on there in those last few minutes?
There's no problem until the last lap. And what happened was the supply pressure for the gearbox just dropped. So then I was stuck in 6th gear, but it was a good race. I obviously let Riccardo through and rode shotgun for him because we spoke before the race and he really wanted to win this one. And I think now for sure he'll go on and, well, I was going to help him win anyway, but I'm out the race and he's driving a fantastic race, fantastic year, and I hope that he wins out there with no problem at all.
Nigel, thanks very much indeed.
Yes, and Patrese now slicing through the traffic, and Senna got a comfortable lead over Senna, and so it was gearbox problem for Nigel Mansell, yes, and that may well explain why he dropped back so much if he was stuck in top before he found a way to deal with it.
In case you missed that very generous tribute from Nigel Mansell to his teammate Riccardo Patrese, he deliberately let him through to take the lead and was intending to help him win, because Nigel knew that he couldn't with the problem that he's got, and how he was able to stay ahead of Ayrton Senna unless the Brazilian's got a problem too is completely beyond me. So now Riccardo Patrese on his way in his 37th Grand Prix to win in Italy. And here is Patrese. Well, what Nigel said is, I'm just thinking on what I've just said. He was apparently intending to let Patrese win in any case, as a matter of team policy, if he could. But anyway, yes or no, intended or not, sadly Mansell is out of the race. We're on lap 45 now. It looks as though Riccardo Patrese, having won 5 times already in Grand Prix in his long career, is going to consolidate his second place, because when this race started he was only 1 point ahead of Michael Schumacher, who is in 4th position, as you can see from the caption there, and Berger has gone up to 5th ahead of De Cesaris, both of them a lap behind. Only 4 drivers in the closing stages of this dramatic Italian Grand Prix are on the same lap, and some consolation for Nigel Mansell is that his 1 minute 26.119 is the closest to the lap record that we've had, just 1/10 of a second off it, notwithstanding the reduced power and that gearbox problem he had. An quite incredible performance by the Englishman. And Patrese now will be receiving messages from the pits by radio, confirmation by a pit board, and he's 7 seconds ahead of 3 times world champion, previous Italian Grand Prix winner number 1, Ayrton Senna. Is he going to be in Grand Prix next year? And if he is, he'll be in a Williams, because he said that nothing else would do for him. And I wouldn't say it's beyond the bounds of possibility, notwithstanding the fact that we believe that Alain Prost has signed for Williams, and that Prost has got an exclusion clause against Senna in his contract.
I think it would be fair to say that we know that, Murray. But certainly, I think there's a general feeling that that is not the way to go about things. Drivers to exclude other people on the grounds that they might beat them from contracts. This is supposed to be a sport, and hopefully a lot of pressure will be brought to bear on Alain Prost to go out and race Ayrton Senna. In 1988 and 1989, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna raced each other unfettered in the McLaren team. Each of them lost to the other one in one of those championships, and nobody criticised them from that. And the great champions in sport are characterised by being prepared to take anybody on, and all great champions are prepared to lose and get beaten from time to time. And Alain Prost is not playing the game, and he definitely should climb down from that exclusion clause. It's out of order, it's not good for the sport, it's not good for the sponsors of the Williams team, and above all, it is not good for Alain Prost, because he will not finish his career with respect if he wins the championship because he stitched it up as his own personal property with no competition.
Lap 47 out of 53, and James, let's just discuss this point that Nigel Mansell made, which we may not have made totally clear. Apparently, according to what he said to Jonathan Palmer, he and Riccardo Patrese had actually discussed tactics before the race began and agreed that Riccardo Patrese would go through and win, which explains, of course, why Mansell was doing those fast times, but not trying to get past Riccardo Patrese. This frankly surprises me, in view of the fact that Mansell, we all know, wants that 9th win so badly, as Riccardo Patrese goes into the 48th lap out of 53. Does that surprise you?
Whoops, and we've got an off there going on, an action replay, a little shortcut maybe through the gravel. And as that looks like Katayama. Yes, well, looks like a lot of gravel in the air actually, but it did look like Katayama. And yes, it is. It seems strange, but to be fair to Nigel, he's had a very heavy weekend emotionally, and he's all over the place, and quite frankly, nothing would surprise me, and Patrese certainly needs the points to come second in the World Championship, and Nigel has always been generous in his support of Patrese and the way that he has supported him in his fight this year. And of course this is the Italian Grand Prix, so if he was going to do it anywhere, this is a very nice place to do it, and I suspect that was a personal thing, because above all he's very angry with the management of the Williams team, but Patrese seems to have slowed down, and Senna is right there. Senna's closing in on Riccardo Patrese. Definitely, Patrese's got a problem.
Indeed he has. He's second and not leading, because Ayrton Senna on lap 48 out of 53 seemingly now is on his way to win in Italy at Monza as he won in 1990. I wonder if Riccardo Patrese has got the same problem that Nigel Mansell had. He's slowing down all the time. He's going to be caught and passed by Gerhard Berger, who is in 5th position. The Italian is out of the race. I thought he was coming into the pits. He's slowed right down. So now, on lap 48, it is Ayrton Senna leading, Riccardo Patrese still in 2nd position, and it looks as though Martin Brundle, who was in 3rd place, although a long, long way back, is going to catch Patrese and take 2nd position, which would be the highest that the Englishman had ever finished officially in his career. He had a 2nd place earlier on in his career, but was excluded for no reason, no fault of his own. And you can see now that with the Larousse going past, that's Katayama, who has regained the course, and Riccardo Patrese was 16 seconds ahead of Martin Brundle, who is now catching the Williams-Renault hand over fist. So look for the Benetton and Martin Brundle to go up to 2nd as Senna leads, the race leader.
Yes, and clearly Patrese is in terrible trouble, because that previous lap, which he only went into trouble halfway around, it was some 18 seconds slower than he had been lapping. And Berger in the background, remember, has been lapped, but he is in 4th place. He will be 4th when Patrese
Well, Maurizio Gugelmin out of the Italian Grand Prix, and here's Martin Brundle. He is ahead of Riccardo Patrese. So the Englishman Martin Brundle in the Benetton, as JJ Leto goes off the course, is now up into 2nd place. Ayrton Senna is on lap 50. Out of the race goes JJ Leto. They're dropping out like flies now, and Jonathan Palmer's got news for us.
Well, apparently Patrese has made a radio communication to the pit. He said there's something wrong with the car, which we could all see, but it's in a very general way. He says the nose of the car is up in the air. Now, to me, that could suggest some problem with the active suspension.
Here, a ride height problem. That'll affect the aerodynamics of the car. We've seen what it's done to him. He's down into 3rd position on the 50th lap, with 3 laps to go at the end of it. Seemingly certain victory now for Ayrton Senna. Martin Brundle will finish higher than he's finished in his entire career officially. That's going to help him no end in his negotiations with a team for 1993, because he's out of Benetton at the end of this season, his place being taken by Riccardo Patrese, and Gerhard Berger is closing right up on Ayrton Senna. This really is a quite incredible race. Berger, of course, is a lap behind, but Ayrton Senna seems now to be taking it comparatively easily.
Yes, that's right, but Berger, on the other hand, is chasing, because he will know that Patrese is in trouble, and if Patrese is going to try and limp it to the race, Berger could well catch him. Schumacher, 3 laps to go, there you see it. Schumacher is already with, or about to catch, Patrese, but I think Patrese's problem seems to be more than just nose up in the air, because he's going very slowly down the straights as well, so one would have to suspect that there's a mechanical problem more than just that. I mean, if the active suspension could certainly be playing up, and its fail-safe system does tend to push the suspension up rather than down, because the worst thing you want is collapsed suspension, and that used to be a problem with active cars in the early development stages, and Williams have got a fail-safe to push it up, and that would certainly screw up the handling. However, he's definitely still on the straight. So Senna cruising round, Berger closing in, And Schumacher's already gone through in third place, and still no Patrese over the start-finish line.
Well, that's perfectly correct. Benetton running second and third, of course, and Patrese limps across now, and he not only limps across, but the whole of the back of the under tray is dragging on the ground and striking sparks off the tarmac. So it certainly is some kind of an active suspension oblique ride height problem. We're on lap 51, 2 laps to go at the end of this one. Berger about to unlap himself as Senna comes through to complete his 51st lap and start his penultimate lap. And he is some 25 seconds ahead of Martin Brundle on his way to a certain 6 points. And you can see now, there's the confirmation of what I was saying. Patrese's car weaving about with the back of the car dragging along the ground.
Yes, and you could see on that sideways shot there, the rake of the car, the nose was right up in the air, and the car was sitting down on its haunches. And that must be very alarming indeed to drive. So it's not surprising he slowed right down like that, and that may just be why he's going so slowly down the straights too, because he's quite justifiably worried about it turning left or right on the straight. So Berger going up to try and unlap himself from Senna, because Berger is 53 seconds behind, and he does so, 53 seconds behind Patrese as they went over the line last time, but with 2 laps to go, he could indeed catch him. It may be that Patrese will realise that the problem, will get more comfortable with the problem when if he's finding it behaving consistently, and will be able to speed up a bit to try and retain 4th place.
Meantime, Andrea de Cesaris in the Tyrrell Ilmor has moved up into 6th position. Race order on lap 52. Ayrton Senna leading Martin Brundle by 23 seconds. Schumacher in the second. Benetton is in 3rd position. In 4th place, it is his teammate. And, 3rd position is Schumacher. 4th is still Patrese, who's limping round. And he's 31 seconds ahead of Berger, so he's probably going to keep that place. Berger in 5th place. De Cesaris is 6th. Alboreto is 7th. Martini is 8th. Katayama is in 9th. And Carl Wendlinger is in 10th position, with Ayrton Senna on his last lap in this 53 lap, full of incident and excitement and drama, Italian Grand Prix. What a race. Senna has got an enormous lead now, nearly half a minute ahead of Martin Brundle. He will be very happy to jog round by his standards, and by jog I mean about 1 minute 32, which was his previous lap, compared with the fastest lap that we've had so far, 1 minute 26.1 of Nigel Mansell, who's retired, of course, as has Riccardo Patrese. And it's been another example of Ayrton Senna just hanging on and playing the chances and winning.
Yes, that 132 is probably about 135 miles an hour average for a jog, Murray. But certainly to him, in that nice McLaren, it's a jog, but not as nice as he'd like, because Williams is where he wants to be next year. And fast though the McLaren is, it's not competitive this year. And meantime, Berger, you saw in the foreground there, just gone out of the picture. He's still racing, and he's trying to catch the ailing Riccardo Patrese in the Williams. But Senna round to take another win, and he's picked this one up through perseverance. But nevertheless, the McLaren have got better, and a win for Ayrton Senna.
And it is the Brazilian's 36th Grand Prix victory, and already the flags are out. Well, it was a lucky win for Ayrton Senna. It was an unlucky race for Nigel Mansell. It was an unlucky race for Riccardo Patrese. But it is the first man who sees the checkered flag who wins, and that was Ayrton Senna. Luck or not, he hung on and was quick enough to get that victory. Martin Brundle finishes in 2nd place. Schumacher finishes in 3rd position, and Berger is ahead of Riccardo Patrese on the last lap, up into 4th place. I was going to say this is going to be the first time since the Canadian Grand Prix that a Williams would not have been in the points, but Riccardo Patrese is going to finish in the points, no doubt about that, because he's a long way ahead of the 6th position man to be, which will be Andrea de Cesaris. In fact, de Cesaris has already finished the race, a lap behind the leaders, as Gerhard Berger closes up on JJ Lehto's Dallara with Patrese in the background. The Italian Grand Prix of 1992 has been won, as it was in 1990, by Ayrton Senna in the McLaren Honda. Martin Brundle, a superb second in the Benetton. Schumacher, a superb third. And that's the first time that two Benetton team drivers, certainly this season, have been on the podium in the top three places, as Riccardo Patrese, having led the race for so long, limps home in fifth position, the last person to go the full distance. And as ever, Ayrton Senna has magically produced somehow a gigantic Brazilian flag. He's obviously stopped and taken it from one of his many supporters here. And I wonder how Ayrton Senna will feel about this win. Now he hasn't been all that complimentary about the ability of the McLaren Honda this season in comparison with the Williams Renault, but it's taken him to victory for the third time. He won in Monaco, he won in Hungary, and now he has won in Italy. Well, Italy and Monza, the oldest, the most historic, the most charismatic World Championship Grand Prix course of them all, has produced some magnificent races in the past. It's produced another one today, with starting in the lead was of course Nigel Mansell right up to the 19th lap. Then Riccardo Patrese moved ahead of him. We understand by agreement until that 48th lap, by which time Mansell was out. Ayrton Senna took the lead, won the race, and you see that now in second position is Michael Schumacher in the World Championship. He's moved ahead of Riccardo Patrese, and Senna and Patrese are tying for third position. So it's been a good race for McLaren with both their cars in the top five, but it's been a wonderful race for Benetton with Schumacher up to second in the Drivers' Championship and with both their cars in the top three, which means to say that they will have extended their lead over McLaren, who are third in the Constructors' Championship. Williams, of course, have already won the Constructors' Championship in the same way that Nigel Mansell has already won the Drivers' Championship. It's been a dramatic day with Nigel Mansell announcing his retirement, which his many fans will hope he changes his mind about, as he did in 1990 at Silverstone when he said he was out of Grand Prix racing, only to make a magnificent comeback, win races for Williams in the developing FW14 in 1991, and then win the World Championship in 1992. And already the Tifosi, the fabled, fanatical Italian fans who owe their allegiance primarily to Ferrari, are all over the circuit. You're looking down at the Parc Fermé, the two Benettons already there, Ayrton Senna's car in, and there are the Tifosi, identifiable by the fact that an awful lot of them wear something red, and something red means Ferrari. A t-shirt, a shirt, a cap, and a lot of cars all around the circuit, and I hope they've got guards on them, because it's the Tifosi are also fabled for finding souvenirs in the form of a wing mirror or a gear knob or even a steering wheel. They are easily detachable these days.
Yes, and really a dramatic day with Nigel Mansell announcing his retirement from Grand Prix racing this morning, then hatching a plot, plan to hand the race to his teammate Riccardo Patrese so that he could have a home win and a bonus for it's been a season playing second fiddle to the new world champion. But the general feeling here at Monza, in the paddock and throughout the Formula One industry, is that although Mansell's problems with Williams were largely self-inflicted, it's a great shame for Grand Prix racing, and everybody hopes that, and also that maybe his announcement was a little bit hasty. It's been a very emotional weekend for Nigel Mansell. He says he hasn't really slept. He's been in meetings with the Williams team, he's been in arguments and dramas, he's talked to McLaren, and really he's been running around in a tremendous spin here, and we all hope that he can do what he did with his last retirement and find himself the drive and rescind the retirement, and that we will see him in Grand Prix racing again. In the meantime, he showed us just what a classy driver he is today, because he charged away, was controlling the race absolutely, and then handing it to his teammate, but he showed us who was in charge first and foremost. In the meantime, the other news here, which in all the excitement has been rather forgotten about, and that is that that Martin Brundle is being dropped by the Benetton team in favour of Riccardo Patrese, and I find that really a great shame, because I can't see the reason for it, other than maybe commercial, in that Patrese is Italian and of course Benetton are an Italian company. Beyond that, certainly from a motor racing point of view, there is no justification for it. In my opinion, there is no reason to suppose that Riccardo Patrese is going to do a better job for them than Martin Brundle has done. There is talk that it's because Martin Brundle doesn't qualify well enough, and I believe Tom Walkinshaw has alluded to that. But that really is not right at all, because if you examine this season, you'll find that Martin Brundle has certainly, it is a big weakness in his driving, his failure to qualify well. He's been an average of a second per meeting slower in qualifying than his teammate Michael Schumacher, but so has Riccardo Patrese. It's almost identical how much slower he's been than Mansell, to the gap between Brundle and Schumacher. So clearly, and it would be wrong of anybody to suggest that Mansell is a quicker driver than Schumacher. He's a more experienced one, but young drivers who are talented like that don't get any quicker. They're quick straight away, and for that reason I can't see any advantage in qualifying, so that certainly isn't a justification. And as far as racing is concerned, Brundle has proved this season that he races hard and he races extremely well. And there is Ayrton Senna and two Benetton drivers on the rostrum for the first time ever. They've had two drivers in the first three that got some on the rostrum, and a very happy Ayrton Senna to have picked up 3 wins in such a dismal season. That's not a bad result for such a relatively uncompetitive season, but I'm really sad that Martin Brundle has been dropped, as I say, in favour of Riccardo Patrese, because Brundle has more future. Patrese is more talented, but Brundle is more of a worker, and there's no reason to suggest Patrese will go any better.
Well, there he is, his 36th Grand Prix victory in what has been a poor season for him. But on his right and your left, Martin Brundle, a superb second, and on the right of the podium, Michael Schumacher, as the national anthem sounds out. Well, the national anthem is hastily taken off because they've played the British national anthem for the constructors rather than the Brazilian national anthem for Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna seems to be completely untroubled by it. Why should he be? Terrific win for him. His future is as vague as that of Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell, but just one or two other compliments as you look at second place Martin Brundle in this race to Andrea De Cesaris, who finished in 6th position. It's some time since a Tyrrell has been in the points, and Andrea De Cesaris, who is the most experienced Grand Prix driver never to have won a Grand Prix, finishes in 6th position. Michele Alboreto finishes 7th for the sixth time this year. Amazing. He's been out of the points, just out of the points by 1 place for the 6th time today. And in 10th position, Karl Wendlinger, the Austrian, for the struggling March team, who look as though they've got a much brighter prospect for 1993. Very hopeful of the sort of sponsorship that they need in Grand Prix racing. JJ Lehto, who is moving to the new Sauber team, the Swiss Sauber team, backed by Mercedes-Benz in 1993. with Ayrton Senna wasting a wonderful drink, champagne again, as is commonplace at the end of every Grand Prix. And just look at that crowd. The crowd is actually down at Monza in comparison with the past, because the Italians who love their Ferraris didn't see much of a chance of Ferrari winning, and how right they were, with both Alesi and Capelli retiring in the very early stages of the race. But nevertheless, as you can see from that heaving mass of gaily dressed spectators, there are a heck of a lot of them here at Monza. Now Senna, Brundle and Schumacher file from the podium into the television interview room, and hopefully we'll be seeing and hearing them in the very near future. But confirmation that the 1992 Italian Grand Prix was won by Ayrton Senna, 17 seconds ahead of Martin Brundle, whose teammate Michael Schumacher in the second Benetton was third. Gerhard Berger went the full distance in the second McLaren to finish fourth, ahead of Riccardo Patrese, who led but dropped back, we assume because of a suspension problem. In sixth position and last point scorer, one lap down, Andrea De Cesaris, seventh Alboreto, eighth Martini, and in ninth position behind Pierluigi Martini was Ukio Katayama, the Japanese driver. That's the highest I think that he has finished this season. Carl Wendlinger in 10th position. Incidentally, Katayama equals his highest position because he was 9th in Brazil. And in 11th place, the last official classified finisher, JJ Leto. Fastest lap, Nigel Mansell, lap 39, 1 minute 26.119, 1/10 of a second off the lap record. So now we go in on September the 27th, in a fortnight's time, to Portugal, and after that of course to Japan, and finally the last Grand Prix of the year, completing what has already been a superb World Championship, to Adelaide in Australia. Look at this magnificent Monza circuit. I remind you that it was built in 1923. It has been used continuously since then. On this track, great drivers like Nuvolari, Caracciola, Rosamar, Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart, Fangio, you name it, they have raced here. The whole place oozes Grand Prix history and tradition, and you feel a very special atmosphere and excitement when you come to Italy, not only because of the enthusiasm of the average Italian, the Tifosi, but because of the location. It has been held once or twice in other places, but none of them have been as special as Monza. And certainly not for Ayrton Senna, who you see there on this replay of him taking the Ferrari flank. Well, Gilles Villeneuve, of course, another ex-Ferrari driver, held in esteem and gigantic admiration by all Grand Prix lovers. And we're staying, I'm glad to say, to hear what race winner Ayrton Senna. Now that, you see the sparks there striking up from the back of the under tray of Riccardo Patrese's Williams. I need hardly tell you that this is a replay. It's not been unknown for thousands and thousands of Tifosi to be on the track before everybody's finished. And one memorable year, Nigel Mansell in the Lotus was battling with Bruno Giacomelli for a position when they came out of the Parabolica together, and Nigel Mansell backed off and Bruno Giacomelli took that place simply because he was more interested in finishing than finishing before he hit anybody. I'm glad to say he didn't. And you see now we were sweeping across the paddock. They're in their seventh heaven, the fans now, because they're on the track, they're on the grid. McLaren having won, Benetton Ford. This has been a magnificent result for Benetton and for Ford. It was the new 7 Series engine that was used to propel Brundle and Schumacher to second and third places. And not a good race for Renault, although it wasn't a bad race because of their problem. It was apparently a bad race for Nigel Mansell because of gearbox, and for Riccardo Patrese because of suspension problems. And to be fair to Williams, the active ride suspension which they pioneered and have been so successful with has given, as far as I know, no trouble at all this season. So now you look down on Monza, you're looking in the direction of the race, and hopefully we'll look up towards the Rettifilo. On the left, the grandstand; on the right, the major new complex of pits and press offices. Now you can see the Rettifilo coming into the top of your picture as the aeroplane sweeps over Monza. And down there, the United Nations, well, the flags of the nations, the Union Jack, the Brazilian flag, the Ferrari flag. And the people who've come here know that they have seen a good race, particularly because of the efforts of these three men. In the middle, Ayrton Senna. On your left, Martin Brundle. A very happy Martin Brundle. On the right, Michael Schumacher. They've both proved something, especially Martin Brundle. And I'm just listening for the first question, as you are. And I've no doubt that it'll be to ask Ayrton Senna whether he thinks he could have done any better under the circumstances. He hardly could, of course, having won the race. And Martin Brundle looking his usual phlegmatic self. Michael Schumacher on the right, just 23 years old. And that's his fourth.
Congratulations, your third win of the year. But I bet you thought while you were lying in third place that you couldn't perhaps win this one.
Well, after the start, I didn't think I could maintain the pace with Mansell. But he only opened a little bit of a gap and then stopped there, and I kept pushing hard to try to keep the gap as small as possible, and had Ricciardo another couple seconds behind me, so I just pushed very hard right from the beginning, and I was able to stay in touch within some distance, you know, and still Ricciardo behind me a couple seconds. Then I started to have some problems, and Ricciardo close on me. He took me easy on the straight, just coming really fast. I think he was very good on the braking maneuver there, because he was very late on the brakes, and I thought he was going to go straight. From there on, then I just tried to chase then but Ricciardo and hope he would catch Nigel. And we were just going our own pace. But I was a little bit slower than they were, even trying hard. But with traffic, I was always somehow being able to close again the gap. And then they were going away a little bit again on a clear circuit. So I said, okay, I don't know, they are pushing hard each other. Therefore, if I maintain some pressure, maybe something goes wrong at the end of the race. And then Mansell first went, and not long after Ricciardo. And I don't know what were their problems. But I'm very happy with my own race, because I believe that with the car engine combination we had for us here, it was the very best I could get out of it today during the race, throughout the race.
Ayrton, can I ask you, first of all, what's your reaction to Mansell's retirement? And secondly, will you still be interested in the Williams drive?
Well, I have some sympathy for Nigel, because clearly it seems that he doesn't really want to stop now. But the situation is just that way, and I feel in some ways sympathy for him, because I have a similar situation. I have not done my official announcement, reading any paper to anyone, but I made it clear so far that unless I feel I can have a competitive situation in the future, I won't be driving too. So I know what's the feeling like, and therefore I think it's not a nice thing for him. It's not a nice thing for any of us.
But the Williams drive, might that change your mind about next year?
Well, it's no secret that I've been trying very hard to get some deal with Williams. Situation is very complex. It's not nice, it's not clear either. But I don't think Nigel position today or before was the problem for me going there or not, and the problem is somebody else, as we all know. Therefore, I don't know what's going to happen anyway, and we have just wait and see. Time will really make things clear to all of us. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen right now.
Well, Ayrton, one of your old sparring partners from Formula 3 days alongside you. Congratulations, Martin Brundle. Second place, equaling your best ever, of course. Can't do you any harm because you're looking for a drive next year too.
Yeah, I currently haven't got a contract for 93, but you know, there's 3 more races left this year yet, and let's worry about those. And just keeping an eye on the situation. It's a sad day for British motor racing if Nigel's retiring. I hope I can put a few smiles back on the faces.
Any incidents for you during the race, Martin?
Had a poor start, which is unusual, we both did, and I had to be quite aggressive in the first few laps. When I emerged from Ferraris and that, I was 16 seconds behind Ayrton. I could keep that gap for some time, but I was working my tyres much too hard. I couldn't, I was going to have to make a pit stop if I carried on driving at that speed. So I just kept my distance and kept a watch out behind. And the traffic I found particularly difficult today. It was just a bad day for traffic.
Michael Schumacher, third place. You were dead last after the first lap. What happened on that first lap?
In the first lap I made a little mistake, I would say. I was quite close behind Boutsen after I made a bad start and went into the wrong gear. Instead of third I went into fifth, and I lost a couple of places. And then I was trying to catch Terry in the end of the straight in the braking, but then he moved to the inside, he was in front of me and I couldn't brake anymore with the car enough, and just touched his rear wheel, and the nose was destroyed. It was unfortunately, it was like this because I think today my car was quite good and we could be a bit further in front, and I'm quite sorry for the mechanics. They have done a good job this weekend.
Well, you're now in second place in the World Championship. You must be delighted with that.
Oh, that's nice, yeah. I mean, there was some talking already before the race and after Spa, but I really didn't think about second place. For me, it's fantastic to stay in third position. I wouldn't believe this in the beginning of the year, to be there. Now I'm in second position, but as Martin said, there are still 3 races open, and I have somebody, two guys behind me. I think they still be able to catch me. But we have to see what the end of the season is bringing us. If I could continue like this, it would be fantastic, but we just have to see.
Congratulations anyway. Well done, Ayrton, third winner of the year. Many congratulations to you, McLaren, and to you, Martin Brundle, a great second place. Thank you, gentlemen.